The Shadow Chancellor George Osborne arrived at the Birmingham Post and Mail this morning. After chatting to Post editor Mark Reeves, business editor Alun Thorne sat down with Mr Osborne to find out what the Conservative Party would do to sort out the ailing West Midlands economy.
Today we're on the top floor of Fort Dunlop, overlooking the Jaguar's Castle Bromwich plant. Jaguar is a company that sits right at the heart of the West Midlands economy, but at the moment, like many in its sector, it is suffering from the combined effects of the credit crunch and the subsequent recession. Shadow Chancellor George Osborne is with us today to discuss the issues facing the sector and what a future Conservative government might do to kick-start the car-making industry and the rest of the economy. So, Mr Osborne, thank you for joining us today. Yesterday's car figures showed that Jaguar sold twice as many cars this February as it did last year. Clearly it is a viable company. It's still a hugely important mark in the industry. The Birmingham Post and some of our sister papers have been calling for government assistance, and recently the government's announced a £2.3 billion loan scheme from European money. I'm interested to know your feelings on that and how the Conservatives would tackle it differently.
Well, first of all, I agree with you. I mean, Jaguar have got a fantastic business. I've just been around the Castle Bromwich plant with David Smith, the chief executive, talking not just to him and his management team, but also the trade unions and lots of the staff on the shop floor. Those two groups of people, the management and the workforce, have come together. They've done that deal yesterday to make sure that costs are kept down. They've taken some tough decisions on pay. And I think now it's the obligation of the government to live up to its side of the bargain. I mean, really since October, which is now 5 months away, the government have been promising help for the car industry, and nothing has actually been delivered. So we've had plenty of car summits, plenty of Peter Mandelson and Gordon Brown visits. What we've not actually had is real help coming through to companies like Jaguar Land Rover and of course all their suppliers and other businesses across the West Midlands, and that is so frustrating. At the heart of this problem, at the heart of this recession, is a credit crunch, and that is an absence of credit flowing in the economy in the way that it normally does, that helps a business like Jaguar Land Rover manage its cash flow, ensure that it's able to continue trading. And that is the key thing. We've got to get the credit flowing, not just bailing out the banks, but get the credit flowing. And the frustration for me as a Conservative politician is that I've been demanding this, calling on the government to do this, as has David Cameron, since November, and it just hasn't happened.
Now, I mean, it has to be said, you've been over, as you said, you've been over to the Castle Bromwich site today to see the Jaguar plant at work. Clearly, this is one of the last sort of volume car makers in the UK. I think a lot of people would ask the question, under the previous Conservative administration, the sector saw its largest decline. Why should people feel that a future Conservative government would support the car making industry in the UK?
Well, I mean, first of all, you've got to look at, if we want to compare records, 1 million manufacturing jobs now have been lost under Labour over the last 10 years. I mean, all this nonsense about them supporting manufacturing, millions of people, 1 million in manufacturing and in other industries have lost their jobs. So they haven't done well for this sector, and now we're in the worst contraction since the Second World War, worse than any of the Conservative years. And the difference here is that, and I think this is a really important thing for people to understand, in the 1970s and the 1980s, the problem with some of the car production in the UK was that they were making models that people didn't want to buy. They were unproductive plants. There were huge problems with the trade unions, and people remember those days, and it was a very, very difficult situation. But we came through it, and the West Midlands was stronger at the end of it. We had a more vibrant city. The city itself was transformed, and we have businesses like Jaguar Land Rover, which have second to none production facilities. They've got models that people want to buy, not just in Britain but around the world. So we've got a good company. It's not a problem. It's not a company with a union problem. It's not a company with a problem that no one wants to buy its models. It's a company with a credit problem. And here the government can help, and the government should be able to support that company by underwriting its loans, providing loan guarantees. That is not happening at the moment, and that is a tragedy.